My name is Nora Hayes. I'm 34, and for the first time in my adult life, I thought I had outrun the gnawing fear that lived in my bank account. I live in San Diego now. Glass light, ocean air, mornings that smell like salt and coffee. 2 weeks ago, the promotion finally landed. Director of Corporate Strategy at a mid-size AI firm that suddenly started to print money instead of promises. Salary, stock, stability. I slept one night like a child, dreamless and heavy, and woke up believing maybe I could be generous without bleeding. I told my family too soon. The group chat caught fire. Heart emojis, champagne gifts. My mother, Carol, wrote that she always knew I'd make it. My sister, Vanessa, called me a boss. My brother, Zach, sent a thumbs up and a quiet proud of you, which in Zach language is a parade. I screenshotted the thread and sent it to my boyfriend, Ethan. He replied, I'm happy for you. Just remember, you don't have to fix everybody to prove you made it. I rolled my eyes and told him he was being dramatic. 10 days later, the first ask arrived. Vanessa needed $220 for tires. I've been driving on wires, she wrote, like she was auditioning for a blues song. Then mom's copay at the dentist. Then groceries, then gas. They were small requests, and I was generous. And I rehearsed the speech I'd give about how this is what success is for, to take care of our own. Then came the text. It was a Monday, 8:13 p.m. I was rinsing rice in the kitchen, the city lowering its voice outside my windows when my phone lit up. Mom, Dane, please help. The power bill's past due. We're sitting in the dark. I hate to ask like this, but can you send anything? I stood very still. Something in the wording pinched. Too polished, too heavy with shame, like it had been practiced. I didn't follow the itch. I called. She answered on the first ring, breathless, as if she'd been holding the phone like a life preserver. The lights had already been cut once, she said. They were using candles. Vanessa had sold a bracelet to buy groceries. Zach's phone might be shut off next. She was embarrassed. She never wanted me to see them like this. Every sentence was a small apology pinned to a larger one I couldn't quite name. Okay, I said softly, like I was soothing a frightened dog. I'll take care of it. That night, I wired $3,200. Not just for the bill. I told her to use the rest for whatever they needed. Gas, food, a small cushion against the next crisis. Relief washed through the line. She called me her miracle. I stacked my bowls, turned off the kitchen light, and let the dark feel like virtue. Morning came with blue sky and gratitude. Mom's voice cracked when she thanked me. She said she was ashamed for letting it get that bad. I told her it happens. We're okay. I love you. I went to work light as an envelope. A week later, the envelope tore. I was having lunch in La Jolla with my cousin James. Real estate, golden tan, always a half step outside the family drama. Mid-conversation, he turned his phone around. You see Vanessa's story? I hadn't. On the screen. Vanessa Poolside, a boutique hotel I recognized from a conference I'd once endured. 2 cocktails sweating on a table, an extravagant sun hat, the filtered shine of leisure. The caption, only real family invited. Tagged, 2 of her friends and our cousin Leo. No mom, no Zach, certainly no me. Something cold unlatched in my chest. I didn't speak. I didn't accuse. I handed the phone back, my face a polite mask, while something inside me quietly rearranged itself into a new shape. That night, the apartment was so still I could hear the neighbor's dog breathe. I didn't call Vanessa. I didn't text Mom. I opened my laptop. A spreadsheet blinked awake, an old one I hadn't touched since my father died. Then I opened another tab and pulled up the deed to the house in North Carolina. I knew exactly where the documents lived because I had put them there, after Dad's funeral, when everyone else shattered in their own private ways. There were bank appointments and lawyer meetings and decisions nobody wanted. I was 29, flying back and forth, eating grief in conference rooms. They let me handle it because I didn't cry in public. That's how I became trustee. I didn't ask for power. I accepted responsibility. The difference matters until the day it doesn't. Hey, Ethan said from the doorway. T-shirt soft, hands in his pockets. You're in spreadsheet land at 10 p.m. That's never a good sign. I told him about the poolside post. He raised his eyebrows. And what did the electric company say when you called to verify? The question landed like a stone in a pond, rings widening to the edges of my silence. I hadn't called. Because good daughters don't audit emergencies. Because I wanted the story where I saved everyone and nobody lied to me. Ethan stepped closer. You don't have to prove you're good by being gullible. I stared at the trust documents. A clause I remembered in outline sharpened into words. If any beneficiary abuses the trust or misrepresents financial need to extract funds, the trustee may restrict or remove access pending review. I traced the sentence with my cursor until it glowed like a fuse. I set the laptop aside and dialed the power company. Just checking the status for my mother's account, I said, giving the address. The customer service rep clicked her keys, cheerful, unaware she was holding my family's throat in a neat little script. All current, she chirped. Was paid, looks like, 2 weeks ago. The quiet after that sentence had teeth. Thank you, I said, and hung up. My heartbeat didn't speed up. It slowed into something focused and deliberate. I opened the bank portal linked to the trust. Transactions I didn't recognize piled up like footprints. Cash pulls from ATMs nowhere near Raleigh, a hotel charge under Vanessa's name, cheerful withdrawals that wore my generosity like a borrowed dress. I thought I would cry. I didn't. I felt a clean, cutting disappointment, the kind you feel when you're finally forced to see what was in front of you all along. I froze the automatic distributions. I set alerts for every attempted withdrawal. I drafted an email to the law firm that maintained the trust. Temporary hold pending investigation of suspected misuse. Please confirm. They confirmed within 10 minutes, like people who have sent that email too many times to count. My phone buzzed almost instantly. Zach. Mom's card got declined. She's at the pharmacy freaking out. Can you fix the bank? I typed. Is the power on? He wrote back. Yeah, why? I stared at the screen until my reflection looked like someone I didn't recognize. A moment later, Vanessa. Hey, can you spot a few hundred? Mom's card is weird, but I'll pay you back Friday. No apology, no reference to Palm Springs, not even the courtesy of imagination. I typed a word I hadn't used with her in years. No. Calls came in bursts. I let them ring. Silence, I've learned, is its own language, and the people who taught it to me don't like hearing it spoken back. I kept digging. After Dad died, I'd saved every email, every form, because paper doesn't lie, it just waits. That's when I found it. A notification from the county clerk, a lien filed against the family home, not in Mom's name, in Vanessa's. $15,000 from a payday lender downtown, shoved like a stick of dynamite into the foundation of a house she did not own. I enlarged the scan until the pixels broke. There it was in plain ink. Vanessa's signature, where there should have been mine or none at all. The date mocked me, 2 months before the power bill text. While I was wiring hope across the country, she was gambling with a property I was legally bound to protect. I leaned back, palm pressed to my sternum, as if I could hold my ribs still. Ethan sat on the edge of the table, not touching me. Exactly the right distance. Say the thing you're afraid to say, he murmured. That they didn't stumble into this, I said. They planned it. I forwarded the lien to our attorney with one sentence. Call me tonight. While I waited, I opened the trust agreement again. The clause that had glowed earlier now roared. My father's voice drifted up from memory, gentle and unyielding. Money doesn't change who people are. It gives them room to stop pretending. The phone rang. The lawyer's tone was calm, clinical. Yes, I had full authority. Yes, Vanessa had no standing. Yes, we would file immediately to protect the property and notify the lender. Yes, there would be fallout. When the call ended, I sat very still, the apartment dark around me. Outside, a siren wailed and receded, a city exhaling. I imagined my mother by candlelight. Except it wasn't true, and that was the part that cut. Not that they needed me, but that they lied to be sure I wouldn't hesitate. I opened a new document and typed a list. Freeze trust. Done. Fraud report to lender. Draft. Cease and desist to Vanessa. Pending counsel. Change passwords on all linked accounts. Immediate. Call county first thing. Flag the lien. Remember who holds the keys. I saved the file under a blunt name. Boundaries. Before bed, I looked once more at Vanessa's caption. Only real family invited. I almost laughed. Real family doesn't require a cover charge. Real family doesn't set the house on fire and call it warmth. I closed my laptop. I didn't feel vengeful. I felt awake. They'd always feared one thing, that I'd remember what I controlled and use it. Tonight I did. It's strange how betrayal doesn't sound like thunder. It starts as a hum, the kind that crawls under your skin and settles in your bones before you can name it. The next morning, I woke up before dawn. The apartment was blue and quiet, the kind of quiet that presses against your ears. Ethan was still asleep. I slipped out of bed and opened my laptop again. The trust documents filled the screen like old ghosts lined in legal language. Trustee has full authority to suspend or revoke distributions if funds are abused or misrepresented. My father's handwriting in the margins, the faint pencil notes he made before signing the final draft. Only someone fair should hold this. I used to think he meant fair, as in just. Now I realize he meant strong enough to choose justice over love. By 7 a.m., I was on the phone with the county clerk. My voice was steady as I explained that a lien had been filed against the Hayes family trust property by an unauthorized party. The woman on the other end sounded polite but tired, as if she'd heard 1,000 versions of this story. She promised to flag it and send confirmation. Then I called my lawyer, Daniel Briggs, a man who could turn empathy into legal precision. He picked up on the second ring. "Nora," he said, "I reviewed what you sent last night. You're right. Vanessa had no legal authority to do that. The trust owns the property, not her, not even your mother. That lien is fraudulent." "So what happens now?" "We'll file a notice of dispute immediately," he said calmly. "And, if I may suggest, stop sending them money. You're not their safety net. You're their target." I closed my eyes. His tone wasn't cruel, just factual, like he'd seen too many families rot from the inside out over things that used to be love. By noon, my inbox was a wildfire. Notifications from the trust bank account showing failed withdrawal attempts. Vanessa's name flashed in one, Mom's card in another. Each denial came with a timestamp, a slow heartbeat of chaos. Then came the calls. First, Zach. "Hey," he started, pretending casual. "Mom says her card isn't working. Did the bank mess something up?" "I suspended distributions," I said. "There were irregularities." "Irregularities?" His voice cracked. "Nora, she couldn't even pay for her prescription." "She doesn't have a prescription problem," I said sharply. "She has a spending problem." He went quiet, then softly, "You've changed." I had to. The line clicked dead. An hour later, my phone lit up again. "Vanessa." I let it ring. Then another. Then a text. "What the hell, Nora? You froze Mom's account? She's crying. She's humiliated. You're blowing this way out of proportion. It's just a temporary loan. I was going to fix it." I stared at the message. No apology, no admission, just the classic pivot from guilt to guilt tripping. I replied with 2 words, "Talk to my lawyer." Her typing bubble appeared, disappeared, reappeared. Then finally, "You don't understand how hard it's been. We're family." I didn't answer. Instead, I opened the trust account's transaction history again, this time looking at the months before Dad died. Patterns began to emerge, steady withdrawals labeled as maintenance, utilities, care expenses. After his funeral, those numbers tripled. Every month, thousands gone, like sand leaking from a cracked hourglass. The house wasn't a home anymore. It was a slow siphon. That night, Ethan made pasta and poured wine. "You're quiet," he said. "I think I'm done being the family wallet," I said flatly. He nodded, cautious. "And how does that feel?" "Like betrayal disguised as self-preservation." He reached for my hand. "Then it's the right move." For a moment, the city felt still again. Just 2 people, dinner, peace. Then my phone buzzed. A new email notification from the bank. Subject line, "Unauthorized activity alert." I opened it. A flagged attempt to transfer $20,500 from the trust to a prepaid travel card registered to V. Hayes. I checked the timestamp, 11 minutes ago. My stomach dropped. They were still trying. I called Daniel immediately. "She's not stopping," I said. "I'll file the fraud report tonight," he said. "This will take care of itself once the lender is notified. But prepare yourself. Once they realize you've closed the taps, they'll come for you emotionally." They already have. By midnight, the messages turned from pleading to fury. "Mom, you embarrassed me. They said the payment was denied. Why would you do this?" Vanessa, "You're sick with control. You love punishing people." Zach, "Please, just call Mom. She's not okay." I set the phone face down. The screen glowed like a wound under glass. Days passed. I went to work, smiled through meetings, signed deals worth millions, and came home to the silence of consequence. I didn't feel powerful. I felt hollow, like the part of me that once begged for approval had finally starved. Then, on the 5th night, a new notification. Certified mail delivery confirmed. Recipient, Vanessa Hayes. The cease and desist letter had landed. No phone calls that day, no texts, no digital noise, just quiet. For a moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, it was over. But betrayal doesn't die quietly. It mutates. 3 days later, I came home from work to find Ethan leaning against the kitchen counter, holding his phone. "You should see this," he said. He handed it to me. A photo glowed on the screen. Vanessa, red-eyed, sitting in a car, holding a cashier's check for $15,000. The caption, "Paid it off. I hope my sister's happy now." I felt my jaw tighten. The performance of innocence. She hadn't posted it publicly. It was sent directly to Ethan, knowing he'd show me. "I'm supposed to feel guilty," I murmured. Ethan shrugged. "Or she's trying to make herself the victim before you can tell the story." I took his phone, saved the photo, backed it up, archived the message. Not out of spite, out of habit. Documentation was armor. For 3 days, silence returned, and for 3 days, I didn't trust it. My family didn't do quiet unless they were building the next storm. I checked the trust account every morning and every night. The balance held steady. No transactions, no attempts. Still, my gut wouldn't settle. Then, on Thursday morning, a new Venmo notification blinked on my phone. $1,400. Sender. Leo Hayes. No message, just a lightning bolt emoji. I stared at it confused until I texted him, "Hey, this a mistake?" He replied instantly, "Nah, that's your cut from Palm Springs. Vanessa charged us each $400 for the Airbnb. Said she fronted it. Figured it was your money anyway." The world went silent for a second. She had used trust funds to pay for the trip, then billed our relatives for it, profiting off the money she'd stolen. I sat down slowly, laughter rising in my throat like something broken. "She turned theft into a business model," I whispered. Ethan leaned against the counter, shaking his head. "That's not stupidity," he said. "That's strategy." And that's when it hit me. She didn't just lie. She enjoyed it. It wasn't survival, it was sport. I stared at my reflection in the dark laptop screen. "I'm done," I said aloud. "No more explanations, no more rescues." I sent one final email to Daniel. "Proceed with full trust lockdown. Prepare documentation for removal of Vanessa Hayes as beneficiary pending review." Then I shut the computer. For the first time in years, I felt the smallest flicker of peace, the kind that only comes after you've stopped asking for family to act like family. Outside, San Diego's lights blinked against the ocean. Somewhere, my sister was probably toasting to another story she'd rewritten in her favor. But the next story would be mine. And this time, the ending would belong to me. The morning after the final lock went into place, I woke up to 23 missed calls, 12 from Mom, 9 from Vanessa, 2 from Zach. The first voicemail started with quiet sobbing. "Nora, please, your sister's in tears. You've embarrassed us. Why are you doing this?" The second, "If your father were alive, he'd be ashamed." I sat at the kitchen table, coffee cooling, untouched, the messages playing one after another. By the 7th, the tears turned to rage. By the 12th, the rage turned to silence. It wasn't grief I felt. It was recognition. The cycle was playing out word for word, tone for tone, exactly as it always did. Guilt, manipulation, victimhood. Only now I was no longer part of it. Ethan slid a note across the table. "Change your number?" I smiled faintly. "Not yet," I said. "Let them speak into the void for a while." That evening, a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened it, Zach stood there, wrinkled t-shirt, eyes bloodshot, smelling like he'd driven all night on gas station coffee. "Nora," he said, "they're losing it. Mom hasn't slept. Vanessa's saying you're trying to take the house away." I let him in. He sat at the counter, twisting his baseball cap in his hands. "I just need to understand," he said. "Did you really freeze everything?" "Yes," I said. "Why?" I turned my laptop toward him. The trust statement glowed under the kitchen light. Every fraudulent withdrawal, every Palm Springs charge, every piece of evidence. His eyes scanned the screen. His face fell. "She really did this?" "She used Dad's house as collateral for a payday loan, Zach. That's not a mistake. That's a gamble." He buried his face in his hands. "Mom doesn't know half of this." "She knows enough," I said softly. "She knows she lied about the power bill." He looked up, eyes wet. "She thought she could fix it before you found out." "She didn't try to fix it," I said. "She let it happen. That's the difference." For a moment he didn't speak, then quietly, "What happens now?" "I file charges if the lender pushes back. The house is protected. The trust is frozen until further notice." Zach nodded slowly, then stood. You know they're going to blame you for all of it. They already do. When he left, the door clicked shut like punctuation. An ending, or at least the pause before one. 2 days later, a delivery notice. Certified letter. Received by Vanessa Hayes. And then silence. No texts, no calls. For the first time in weeks, peace. The air in my apartment felt breathable again. Until that Saturday morning. The buzz of my phone dragged me from sleep. Ethan handed it to me, half awake. Your sister again? No, I said. It's a number I don't know. I answered. Static. Then Leo's voice, our cousin from Palm Springs. Hey, weird question, but Vanessa told us you'd pay her back for the Airbnb? Said it was your share. My share? Yeah, she said the trip was for family bonding, that she fronted everything, and you promised to split it later. I sent her $400 last week. So did Jamie and Kristen. Just checking if that was true. I felt a laugh bubble in my throat, sharp and humorless. No, Leo. She used money from the trust. You already paid her back for funds that were never hers. Silence on the other end, then a low whistle. So she scammed us too? Yes, I said, and you're not the first. He hesitated. Want me to forward the screenshots, payments, receipts, everything? Yes, I said, save everything. When the text came through, my stomach turned. Venmo screenshots, PayPal transfers, captions with cheerful emojis. Family weekend. Paid off. Each one tagged with my sister's smile. That afternoon, I emailed Daniel the proof. He called an hour later. Vanessa's pattern is clear, he said. Misrepresentation, fraudulent gain, misuse of trust assets. We can petition to have her formally removed as beneficiary. I nodded, though he couldn't see it. Do it. He hesitated. Are you sure? Yes. I ended the call, exhaled, and realized my hands were shaking. It wasn't anger anymore, it was grief. Grief for the version of my family that had existed only in my head. That night, Ethan made tea and turned off the lights. Come here, he said softly. We sat on the couch, the city lights flickering through the blinds. Do you ever think, I whispered, that maybe I made them this way? That helping them too much taught them they could always take? He shook his head. No, Nora, you didn't teach them greed. You just stopped feeding it. For the first time in days, I let myself cry. Quiet tears, the kind that fall not from rage, but from finally understanding something irreversible. The next morning, my phone buzzed again. One new message. Vanessa, you've turned on your own blood. Mom's humiliated. You'll regret this. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then deleted the message. If I replied, it would only give her fuel. Instead, I drafted a letter, not to her, not even to Mom, but to myself. Dear Nora, you are not cruel for protecting what's yours. You are not selfish for saying no. You are not heartless for walking away. You are finally choosing peace over chaos. I printed it, folded it, and slipped it into the trust binder, right behind the clause that started it all. Because I knew what was coming next. My family didn't lose quietly. They retaliated. And somewhere, deep in that North Carolina house, another storm was already gathering. The storm came 2 weeks later, but not in the way I expected. It wasn't a lawsuit or another fake emergency. It was a phone call at 2:37 a.m., the kind of hour when only bad news remembers your number. Zach's voice cracked through static. Nora, it's Mom. She collapsed. They rushed her to the ICU. For a moment, everything in the room tilted. I didn't cry. I just moved. Jeans, jacket, car keys. Ethan offered to drive, but I needed to do this alone. I drove 6 hours through darkness that felt endless, headlights carving tunnels through the mist. By the time I reached the hospital in Raleigh, dawn was a gray bruise on the horizon. Zach was waiting by the vending machines, eyes swollen. She's stable, he said. Cardiac arrest. They think it was stress. I sank into a chair. Where's Vanessa? He hesitated. Here, but you probably don't want to see her. I did anyway. I found her in the hallway outside the ICU, hair tied in a messy bun, oversized hoodie, sunglasses hiding what guilt couldn't. When she saw me, she froze. Don't start, she whispered. Not here. I'm not here for that, I said. My voice sounded foreign. Calm. Too calm. She's in there because of you, Vanessa hissed. You froze everything, humiliated her, dragged lawyers into family business. She's in there because we built a family that runs on lies, I said. She flinched, but only for a second. You think you're better than us now? No, I said, just awake. She turned away, tears spilling beneath the sunglasses. You've always needed control. I almost laughed. Control? Vanessa, I gave you everything. You just mistook my help for surrender. We stood in silence until a nurse stepped out and told us to keep our voices down. Hours blurred. Machines hummed. Monitors beeped. I sat beside Mom's bed, her hand cold and limp in mine. She looked smaller somehow, her defiance gone, replaced by something fragile and unbearably human. Zach showed me his phone. She texted me the day before it happened, he said quietly. He handed it to me. The message read, "I'm sorry. You and Nora were right. I let it go too far. I just wanted everyone to be okay. Please forgive me." I felt my throat tighten. She knew. Zach nodded. She was scared, Nora. Scared you'd cut her out forever. I looked at her motionless body. I never wanted to cut her out. I just wanted her to stop pretending. The doctor said she'd need a few days in intensive care. Even with insurance, the estimate for her stay and cardiac tests was $24,000. Zach looked at me with those tired, pleading eyes. "Can you—" I held up a hand. "Yes, I'll cover it, but this is the last time." He nodded, relief softening his face. When I went to the billing office, the clerk looked at me like she'd seen this scene 100 times before. The responsible child cleaning up the wreckage left by love and loyalty. I wired the payment in full. 3 days later, Mom opened her eyes. "Nora?" Her voice was paper thin. "I'm here." "Did you save us again?" The words landed like glass. I wanted to tell her I hadn't saved anyone, that saving was the problem, but I couldn't break her in that moment. "Rest," I said instead. "Everything's taken care of." She smiled faintly, squeezed my hand, and drifted back to sleep. Ethan texted that night. "You okay?" I replied, "No, but I'm clear." Vanessa kept her distance at the hospital. She didn't look at me, didn't speak unless necessary. But I could feel her resentment in the air, sharp and metallic. When Mom was moved out of ICU, the doctor said she'd need a quiet environment. No stress, no drama. I rented her a small condo in a senior community near the coast. Peaceful, bright. When we brought her there, she walked to the window and whispered, "This feels calm. I can finally sleep." That was enough. Back at the hospital parking lot, Vanessa waited by my car. "Don't sell the house," she said without looking at me. "It's not yours to keep," I replied. "You think you can erase me with paperwork?" she spat. "I don't have to. You did that yourself." For the first time, her mask cracked. "You ruined this family." I met her gaze, steady. "No, Vanessa, I just stopped financing the illusion that we were one." She blinked, mouth trembling, then turned and walked away. A week later, I stood in Mom's empty living room. The house was silent, stripped of the clutter and noise that once filled it. Dust caught the sunlight like tiny ghosts. This was where Dad used to sit and tell us, "Take care of each other. The world's already hard enough." We tried. God knows I tried. But love without truth isn't care. It's captivity. I signed the final documents to dissolve the trust and put the house up for sale. Zach accepted it. Vanessa sent 6 emails and 3 voicemails threatening legal action. My lawyer handled all of it. Within days, her case collapsed under the weight of her own fraud. 2 months later, the sale closed. Zach and I received our shares. Vanessa got what was left after debts and legal fees, barely enough to buy silence. She cashed the check without a word. Mom recovered steadily. She painted. She joined a book club. Sometimes she'd send me photos of sunsets from her balcony. She always ended her messages with, "Thank you for everything, love you, and I'm sorry for before." I never asked before what. Some apologies are better left vague. A year later, the quiet finally stayed. Zach had a steady job and called every Sunday. Mom was healthy and peaceful. Vanessa disappeared to Arizona with a man she'd met buying gym equipment online. I didn't ask for updates. And me? I was still in San Diego, same apartment, same view, but lighter. My life didn't feel like crisis management anymore. It felt like mine. One evening, I was walking on the pier when Ethan joined me, hands in his pockets. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "Freezing the trust?" "No," he said gently, choosing peace over them. I watched the sun drop below the horizon, the waves swallowing its reflection. "No," I said. Because sometimes peace is just what's left when you stop trying to make people love you the right way. He smiled, wrapped his arm around me. "Then you did the right thing." For the first time, I believed it. A year passed, and the world didn't collapse without the Hayes family chaos. It simply quieted. I woke up each morning to sunlight instead of phone notifications. No guilt texts, no urgent bills, just silence. The kind that once terrified me, but now felt like freedom. Mom's condo by the coast was a different kind of miracle. She painted seascapes now. Soft blues, pale golds, tiny boats drifting toward the horizon. Sometimes she'd send me a picture of her latest piece with a message that read, "Look, I painted peace." Zach had found steady work at a construction firm. He'd call every Sunday to talk about new projects or just to ask about my garden. Tiny succulents on my balcony. Nothing special, but to him, proof that I was growing something that didn't wilt under family pressure. Vanessa, she was a name that drifted through conversation like smoke. No return address, no apology, just an occasional social media post from somewhere in Arizona. Her hand in someone else's, captioned, starting over. I didn't wish her ill. I didn't wish her anything at all. One evening, as I packed a box of old files to shred, I found the original trust binder. Thick, weathered, edges curled. Inside, my father's handwriting still faintly visible. For the good of all, protect what matters most. For years, I thought what matters most meant family. Now I understood he meant integrity. I traced the embossed letters of my name on the trustee page. Nora Hayes. The ink hadn't faded. Neither had the lesson. I called Daniel, my lawyer, the next morning. It's time to dissolve the trust completely, I said. Close the books. He paused. You sure? That house is gone. The funds are secure. You could keep it running. I don't want to run anything that ties me to who they used to be. He nodded softly. Understood. I'll file the paperwork. When the final confirmation arrived, trust dissolved, case closed, I sat in my living room and let out a breath that had been hiding in me for years. Ethan and I celebrated that night with takeout and cheap wine. He raised his glass. To peace, he said. To boundaries, I added. We clinked glasses. He leaned back, watching me. Do you ever miss them? I thought for a long time before answering. I miss the version of them I made up in my head. The one that needed saving, not the one that expected it. He smiled. That's honest. Honesty's all that's left when everything else burns away, I said quietly. Weeks later, an envelope arrived from Raleigh. No return name, just my mother's looping handwriting. Inside was a photo of the old house, freshly painted, sold sign in front. On the back, she'd written, You did what your father would have wanted. You saved what mattered. I stared at it for a long time. I wasn't sure if she meant the money, the memory, or herself. Maybe all three. That night, I walked along the shoreline, sandals in hand, waves curling around my ankles. The sky was deep violet, the kind of color that makes you believe in second chances. I thought about all the times I'd wired money at midnight, desperate to buy peace, about how love felt like an invoice that never stopped arriving. About the moment I realized that saying no didn't make me cruel, it made me free. Because the truth is, love without boundaries isn't love. It's permission for someone else to write your story. And I'd finally taken the pen back. I stopped at the end of the pier, watching the horizon melt into gold. The ocean whispered, endless and patient, the way time forgives what people can't. My phone buzzed. A message from Ethan. Dinner or sunset? I smiled and typed back, both. As I walked toward him, the wind tangled my hair, the salt air sharp and clean. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was running from something. I was walking toward it, toward a life that was quiet, chosen, mine. In the end, I didn't lose my family. I lost the version of them that fed on guilt and called it love. The rest, the real parts, stayed. Zach's calls, Mom's paintings, even Vanessa's absence, her silence, was its own kind of peace. Because sometimes silence isn't punishment. It's proof that you finally stopped explaining yourself to people who never listened. I turned one last time toward the ocean and whispered the truth I'd fought so long to learn. You can love without being destroyed. You can help without being used. And you can walk away, not from hate, but from self-respect. The tide swept over my feet, cold and forgiving. That's how it ended. Not with revenge, not with anger, just me choosing peace over chaos. And for the first time, realizing that peace was mine to keep.